Hello, children. Have you ever forgotten anything in your life? And if so, did you find any trouble just because of you forgot something? We often or we seldom forget the things in our life. It might be because of the workload or the stress or whatever you may call it. And thus, forgetfulness becomes a curse in somebody's lives. Some people quite often they forget the things and because of which they suffer a lot. They go to exam forgetting their hall ticket. They go down to the corridor. They go down to the what you call parking place, all from some 20th story building apartment without car keys. So like that, many a trouble we face with this forgetfulness. And suppose if you have forgotten a very big period of your life, how would you receive that situation? For example, now you're in your eighth standard, and first suppose you forgot about the days, your experiences, your memories about seventh standard. How would you feel? I'm sure you'll pull off your hair going so mad and crazy about it. How can I forget the whole year? And something similar happened in the life of somebody here, the protagonist of our story, the hero of our story, Bepin Choudhury. In this story, Bipin Babu goes nearly crazy because he cannot recollect his stay at Ranchi. He strongly believes that he has never gone to Ranchi or he has never been in Ranchi. But the circumstances around him, the witnesses around him tell him that he has gone to Ranchi. And this situation makes him almost mad. So let's get into the story, what happened to him finally. And the story name is Bipin Choudhury's Lapse of Memory. You know, children, this story, Bipin Choudhury's Lapse of Memory, was actually uh, written by the great Indian personality Satyajit Ray. Satyajit Ray is a world famous filmmaker from Kolkata. He directed 36 films, including feature films, documentaries, and short stories or short movies. And he's a versatile personality, means a multi-talented person. Besides being a filmmaker, he was a fiction writer, publisher, illustrator, calligrapher, music composer, graphic designer, and film critic. He even authored, means wrote several short stories and novels uh, which are meant for mainly young children and teenagers. So the present lesson, Bipin Choudhury's Lapse of Memory, is also one such interesting story from uh, Satyajit Ray's pen. It was the habit of Bepin Choudhury that on every Monday, while returning from work, he would drop in, means he would visit Kali Charan's bookstore, where he would buy crime stories, thrillers, and ghost stories. And he would buy at least 5 books to uh, go through entire week. It was his routine. Every Monday, every week, on every Monday, he would visit Kali Charan's bookstore, which was in New Market, to buy crime books or thriller books or ghost story books to spend time at home. He was living all alone, and he was not a good mixer, means he was not a kind of person who could mingle with the other people easily, and he had very few friends to say. And he even didn't like simple idle chat, simply wasting time in the name of gossiping and simply talking. So he would prefer books mainly. So, in the same way, one Monday, Bipin Choudhury was at Kali Charan's bookstore. He was just looking for the books he wanted, and there he felt that someone was purposefully looking at him. Then, when he looked at him back, that man, he, with a smile, he said, "I suppose you didn't recognize me," the man said. Then Bipin Choudhury asked, "Have we met before?" Then, surprisingly, that man said, "We have been together for 1 week. Every day we met for 1 week continuously. Uh, I have arranged a car for you in Ranchi." That was in the year 1958. Then Bipin Babu understood what that man mistook him for somebody else. And he said, "Ranchi? Then you're mistaken, because I have never been to Ranchi in my life. Many a time I thought of going to Ranchi, but I couldn't. So you're mistaken. Do you know who I am?" Then the man said, "Who doesn't know Bipin Choudhury?" And the man also introduced himself as Parimal Ghosh. Then Bipin Babu said, "Still you are mistaking. I may not be the person you're thinking." Then Parimal Ghosh said, "What are you talking, Mr. Bipin Choudhury? In the year 1958, you were there in Ranchi. I myself had arranged a car for you to Hudru waterfalls, and you stayed in a bungalow. You didn't want to stay in a hotel, so you wanted your meal to be cooked by a bawarchi, a chef, specially. And even you were there was one more person whom you knew very well, and it was Mr. Mukherjee. Yeah, he stayed with his sister in a hotel, and there in I'll tell you more. At Choudhury waterfalls, you fell down and you had a cut in your knee. And the next day, when I arranged a car for Netherhat, you couldn't make it because of the knee pain. And you and Mukherjee, you people argued about some moon landing even. When he said all these details, Bepin Choudhury was getting doubt. Did he really go to Ranchi? But he just didn't remember that he had been to Ranchi. But this man was telling all these details. Then, looking at the books, Bipin Choudhury said, uh, in which month it was in 1958, you said? Then the man said, it was in month of October. There you are. You're mistaken, sir. It was not me because in the month of October in the year 1958, I was with my friend participating in a puja in Kanpur. I told you no, I'm not the one you're talking about. Then the man said, it's strange, Mr. Bipin Choudhury. You don't recollect anything? Are you not recollecting anything? When you fell down, I myself brought you iodine. Why? Even one evening when I sat with you for a tea, you told me that you had no children and your wife died some 10 years ago and you're living all alone and uh, you had an insane brother, you had uh, a mentally retarded brother who died. That's why you didn't want to visit an asylum, means a mental hospital in Ranchi, because uh, you had a bitter experience in your life with your mental brother. And one more thing, I tell you, you always carried a bag with some books in it across all your trips in Ranchi. Even now you don't remember anything? Asked. Bipin Choudhury simply he left the shop. But that man was looking at him in utter disbelief. What happened? This man doesn't appear to remember anything. Bipin Babu came out of Kali Charan's bookstore to reach his car, which was parked just by the Lighthouse Cinema Hall, which was in Bethram Street. Reaching his car, he asked the driver, Sitaram, to drive the car by the Ganga Riverside Road. As he was going by the river Ganga, Bipin Babu was very much disturbed mentally. He sat in the car and he was thinking about what all happened in the bookstore. Then he thought he had done a mistake by paying so much attention to that intruder. Intruder, who is intruder here? The one who uh, meddled with him, or the one who interfered with his affairs without his permission. Who was that? Parimal Ghosh. So he had never been to Ranchi, no question about it. And he was thinking, that man was telling I was there in Ranchi in the year 1958. I think It's my mistake to give much importance to that man, somebody's, a stranger's words, an intruder's words. Because I know very well, I have never been to Ranchi, no question about it. And it is just inconceivable that he should forget such an incident. He thought, it is just inconceivable, means it is just unthinkable to forget. If he really had been to Ranchi, how could he forget that? Unless, and that 1958 means just some 6 years ago. How could he forget such an incident if he really had been to Ranchi? And he had an excellent memory. He was working in an office, a big firm. He was holding up a very responsible job, and he had never done any mistake in his professional life. Why? For that matter, that morning itself, he spoke for nearly half an hour in an important meeting. Then, how could he forget such an incident from his life? He was thinking, was he losing his mind? But how could that be? And but the man was telling all the details about him, even some personal details like his carrying books in a bag and his wife's death and his brother's mental condition. He was right in every detail except that his having gone to Ranchi. No, it was not his mistake, but it was a deliberate lie. Means Bipin thought that man Parimal Ghosh intentionally lied to him. In 1958, during the pujas, actually he was in Kanpur at his friend Haridas Bagchi's place. Then he thought of writing a letter to Haridas, but he remembered suddenly. Haridas left for Japan some weeks ago, and he didn't have his present address now. Then how to solve this issue? But where was the need for proof? He himself was fully aware that he hadn't been to Ranchi, and that was that. Then where is the proof that I went to Ranchi? No, I know very well I never visited Ranchi. That's it. And thinking about this issue is waste of time, unnecessarily troubling my mind. Things like that. And then Bipin Babu, he decided uh, he rolled up his pants and see if there was really any mark of cut or a scar on his knee. And there was the mark of an old inch-long cut. Really, there was a mark. It was really shocking for Bipin Babu. That man, then whatever he said was right. And then he was just reasoning. It was impossible for anyone to tell when that injury had occurred. Did it really occur when he was in Ranchi, as that man said, or it was simply a mark or a scar that he got in his childhood when he fell down? He tried to recollect any such incidents from his life where he fell down and got an injury at his knee, but he was unable to get anything to his mind. So there was a lot of mental disturbance in Bipin Choudhury. All his worry was he just didn't understand how could he forget a whole week in his life. That man was telling he was there in Ranchi for 1 week and he was telling all the details. But he didn't ever remember that he went to Ranchi. Then Bipin Babu suddenly thought of Dinesh Mukherjee. Yes, that man said Dinesh Mukherjee was also there in Ranchi when he was there in Ranchi. So it would be a good idea to talk to him and ask him if uh, they went to Ranchi in 1958. And moreover, he was living in a nearby colony, but then he hesitated. What he would think if I asked him? He would be thinking, then if they really went, then he would think that he was going nuts, means he became a mad person. That was just unbearable situation. So he uh, decided not to meet Dinesh Mukherjee. And finally he reached his home in his air-conditioned living room, sipping a cold drink. Uh, Bipin Babu felt at ease. He got relaxed. Such a nuisance, just because they have nothing else to do, they go about getting into other people's hair. Thinking about that man, uh, Bipin Babu said to himself, these people, they have nothing to do in their life. Unnecessarily, they mess with the other people and they disturb like this, and it is all a nuisance and a nonsense. Why should I pay attention to his words? So after dinner, he snuggled himself, he tucked tight, comfortably in bed with one of the new thriller books. Bipin Babu forgot all about the man in the new market. Thus, he passed that night. Next day in the office, uh, he was in his office. He understood every passing hour again and again that previous day's incident at that bookstore. It was coming into his mind and disturbing him a lot. So he decided what to make a call to Dinesh Mukherjee and ask. So just before lunch, he made a call to Dinesh Mukherjee. And the other side, the man lifted. Hello, is that Dinesh? This is Bipin here. Well, what's the news? Asked Dinesh. I just wanted to find out if you recalled an incident which took place in 58. 1958? What incident? Were you in Calcutta right through that year? Then Bipin Babu asked. In the year 1958, were you there in Calcutta or did you go anywhere else in that year? Then the man said, let me check my dictionary, let me check my diary. He took 1 minute, and during that 1 minute, uh, Bipin Babu, it was for him like an year, a total year. He was full of tension because what he was going to get the answer from him. And he was even sweating a little, so much he was disturbed. Hello, said that man. Yes, I have got it. I have been out twice. Yes, two times I went out of Calcutta. One is in February to Krishnanagar to attend my nephew's wedding. And then, but the second one, you should also know. You were also there in Ranchi. That's all. But what all about this? Asked. No, I just wanted. Anyway, thanks. And he just put that receiver down. He felt his head swimming. What's happening to me? Yesterday, that man said I was in Ranchi. And even now, Dinesh was also telling that he was there in Ranchi in 1958. But how come it is possible that he forgot all that? and he was sitting before his lunch box, and there were sandwiches were there, but he lost his appetite. He no longer felt his hunger because his mind was totally disturbed. Why? He forgot an incident that took nearly a week days in his life. After lunchtime, Bipin Babu could not carry on his work sitting at his desk, and this had never happened in his 25 years of service in the firm. And in fact, he had a very good reputation in the firm as a conscientious, tireless worker. Means he was very careful and prompt to worker. Such a good name he got. But today, his mind was not at all cooperating with him. It was in full of confusion because he was worrying what happened to him, what was happening to his memory and mind. So at 2:30 itself, he came back home and lying down in the bed, and he was trying to gather with all his wits. He was trying at his best to recollect about the Ranchi incident. He knew what? It was possible for a person to forget everything or to lose the memory in any if any injury takes place to one's head. But he just didn't understand how come it was possible for a person to remember everything except one particular incident. Then he was thinking like that. And then at 7:30, his servant came upstairs and said, Sir Chuni Babu came, says that it is very important. Chuni Lal. Chuni Lal was his schoolmate, Bepin Choudhury's schoolmate, and right now he was in rough times, means he was having many problems, and he had been after Bipin Babu for quite a good time, seeking some help to find him some job. And Bipin had already told him that it was not possible for him to find a job for Chuni Lal. But uh, Chunilal continued, in spite of his refusal to help him. Chunilal continued to visit him, requesting him to help. Then Bipin, with a little vexation, he asked his servant, tell him that not for now, for some weeks, for several weeks, it would not be possible for me to meet him. Tell him that, said. As the servant stepped out of his room, it struck in his mind. Chunilal might know about this Ranchi trip because he was his friend right from his childhood, and these days especially he was seeing him on and off. So immediately he left his bed and he came down. When he reached the living room, Chunilal was about to leave. Seeing Bipin Choudhury, he returned hopefully. Then Bipin asked him straightforwardly, Chuni, I'm asking you one thing, tell me straight. Uh, do you remember anything in 1958, any incident? Do you remember? Then Chunilal said, uh, it might be 58 or 59, but why? You forgot that you went to Ranchi. Then Bipin asked, are you sure that I visited Ranchi? Then Chunilal stared at him in surprise and doubt. He came closer to Bepin and looking at him. Bepin, seriously, are you taking any drugs and all? But you have a very clean record in such matters. You were a very good man with neat habits. How can you forget the trip? You have an excellent memory. How can you forget the trip? Asked. Then Bipin, so you mean that I went to Ranchi? Of course. You went to Ranchi. I myself booked tickets for you. And I was there at the station to see you off. And you know one thing? One of the fans in your compartment was not working. Then I brought the electrician there to set it right. What's happened? What's happening, Bipin? Are you losing your mind? He said. Then Bipin Babu said in an admission, yes, due to the stress of my work in office, I might be losing my memory power. I think I should consult a physician. I consult a specialist or a physician in this case. So seeing Bipin Babu's condition, Chunilal didn't ask anything about his job or about his health, something. So he left. And then afterwards, the next day, Bipin Babu consulted a young physician named Paresh Chanda, having bright eyes and a sharp nose. He became thoughtful when he heard about Bipin Babu's symptoms. So Bipin Babu explained everything to him. Then, for a while, he thought silently and said, Look, Dr. Chanda, you must cure me of this horrible illness. I can't tell you how it is affecting my work. When the doctor was silent, Bipin Babu asked, like a request, Dr. Chanda, you must cure me of this horrible illness. You must cure me of my memory loss. I cannot tell you how much it is affecting my work in office. Dr. Chanda shook his head. You know what, Mr. Choudhury? I have never had to deal with a case such as yours. In my career, I have never seen a case like yours. Frankly, this is quite outside my field of experience, but I have a suggestion. I don't know if it will work, but it's worth a try and it can do no harm to you. So the doctor said it was out of his professional experience, but he had a suggestion to tell Bepin that could help him, and he was not even sure that it would work out. Even then, Bipin Babu, he leaned forward anxiously. As far as I can understand, and I think you are of the same opinion, you must have been to Ranchi, but due to some unknown reason, the entire episode has slipped out of your mind. So what I suggest is that you go to Ranchi once again, and the sight of the place may remind you of your trip. This is not impossible. More than that, I cannot do at this moment. I am prescribing a nerve tonic and a tranquilizer. Sleep is essential, or the symptoms will get more pronounced. Means you must sleep properly every day. For that, I am giving you some tonic. All what you have to do is just go to Ranchi. When you step into the Ranchi, that surroundings, those places might bring you back your memory of the previous trip. And I'm just giving you some tonic and some tranquilizer, means that will keep you calm. and that will give you some sleep. So Bipin Babu felt somewhat better the next morning. After breakfast, he rang up his office, means he telephoned to office and he gave some instructions, and then he procured a first class ticket, means he obtained a first class ticket for Ranchi for the same evening. That very evening, he booked a ticket for Ranchi. And getting off the train at Ranchi next morning, he realized at once that he had never been there before. The moment he got down the train and looked at the railway station, he understood what? Yes, I'm right. I'm correct. I have never visited this place. He came out of the station, took a taxi, and drove around the town for a while. He roamed about simply in an auto, in a taxi. He roamed about all the city. Why? He was just trying if he could recollect his past trip. He went through the streets, buildings, hotels, the bazaar, the Morabadi hill. With none of he almost he visited each and every part of the city, but he didn't feel any previous connection with it. And would a trip to the Hudru Falls help? Then he remembered at Hudru, for the man said at Hudru Falls he fell and he got a cut on his knee. Then he decided to visit that because he didn't want to leave anything to solve that situation. So he arranged for a car and he visited Hudru in that very afternoon. At 5 o'clock the same afternoon, Hidru, two Gujarati gentlemen from a group of picnickers discovered Bipin Babu lying unconscious beside a boulder. That evening, he visited Hudru Falls, but there he became unconscious. And there who came some picnickers from Gujarat, they found him. And when he came into consciousness, uh, Bipin Babu said, I'm finished. There is no hope left. Then Bipin Babu said to himself, I have visited each and every place, but I cannot recollect anything back in my memory. So now there is no hope. So the next morning, Bipin Babu was back in Calcutta. Now he realized that there was no hope for him. Soon he was going to lose everything: his will to work, his confidence, his ability, his balance of mind. Was he going to end up in the asylum? A mental hospital? Bipin Babu couldn't think any more. Why Bipin Babu was thinking like this? Because the previous day he visited Ranchi, but he could never recollect everything. But the people around him was telling that he visited Ranchi in the year 1958. So now Bipin Choudhury uh, took it for granted that he started losing his memory and he's going to be mad. He's going to be mentally imbalanced. So when at home, he called Dr. Chanda and asked him to come over. Then after a bath, he got into bed and he kept an ice bag on his head because he was totally restless, totally disturbed, and very much worried about his future. Just then, servant brought him a letter which someone had left in the letter box. It was a greenish envelope on which his name was written in red ink, and above the name it was also written urgent and confidential. In fact, Bipin Babu was totally disturbed and he was not in a mood to do anything, but somehow he felt he should open that letter and see then and there itself. So he tore open the envelope and took out the letter, and in that letter it was written, Dear Bipin, I had no idea that affluence would bring about the kind of change in you that it has done. Was it so difficult for you to help out an old friend down on his luck? I have no money, so my resources are limited. What I have is imagination, a part of which I used in retribution of your unfeeling behavior. Well, you will be all right again now. A novel I have written is being considered by a publisher. If he likes it enough, it will see me through the next few months. Yours, Chunilal. So the letter was actually written by Chunilal. What he wrote in that letter? Really, I had no idea that whatever I have planned that would bring so much uh, change upon you. Due to my bad time, my rough times, I have come to you for help. But was it really so difficult for you to help one of your old friends? I have no money. My resources are very limited. What all I have is my power of imagination. And a bit of my imagination I have used to give you in retribution. Means I wanted to punish you for his indifference attitude towards your friend who was in much need. So it was all. Now we understood, children, that it was all a trick played by Chunilal with the help of other friends. Why did he do like this? Just as a punishment, because many a time he uh, visited Bipin Choudhury asking him to help in his difficult times, but Bipin Choudhury couldn't take it seriously and couldn't help him at all. So he wanted to give him a punishment. So that's why he planned in such a way to teach just for fun. In fact, he was not so much seriously avengeful, but simply he wanted to play a trick on him that really worked out well. And Bipin was really started thinking that something was happening to his mind and memory. And in the letter, Chunilal also wrote, when you read this letter, all your fears will be gone, you will be all right again. Uh, and very soon I have written a novel, and a publisher was considering it. If everything goes fine, if he likes it, again, all the good times will come to me, I'll be all right. Meanwhile, Dr. Chanda came there. Then Bipin Babu said, I'm fine, doctor. It all came back to my mind as soon as I got off the train at Ranchi. Then Chanda said, a unique case. I shall certainly write about it in a medical journal. See, my suggestion worked out well. It is a very special case and I will write in a medical journal. Then Bipin Babu said, the reason why I sent for you is that I have pain in the hip From a fall I had in Ranchi, if you could prescribe a painkiller. Why did I call you here? Actually, I wanted you to give me some painkiller because I fell down at Ranchi, so I had a pain in my hip. So he didn't tell the doctor what all. He didn't tell the doctor that it was a trick played by his friend and all. Simply he covered like that. So that's all about the story, Bipin Choudhury's Lapse of Memory. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.